Hey guys, welcome back to Guys Stuff. Today I have a beautiful shrimp and crab bisque. This is a Cajun flavored dish. Now I'm not going super hot on this. If you want to really kick it up and go more traditional Cajun, you can add something like cayenne to it. But this is just going to have some of the beautiful Cajun flavors to it, and it's not going to smoke you out. So it's going to be safe for anybody that really likes these flavors. Now you can do it even simpler and omit the shrimp and just do a simple crab bisque, or you could just do a simple shrimp bisque if you really want to save the money. The bulk of the cost in this dish is your crab. It's not that expensive if you can find large containers of it, but if you're buying little tiny bags, yeah, it's going to rack up real quick. But, you know, I don't do these too often, so I'm going all out. This whole thing cost me about 30 bucks, which isn't bad, and it's going to yield 8 to 10 servings, depending on obviously how big of a bowl you take. Now, it's an easy two-step process. We're going to do everything in two pans. The first step is going to be making a roux, and if you don't know what a roux is, it's just a basically neutral, well, most of the time at least, thickening agent for soups, bisques, chowders, sauces, things like that. Just helps thicken things up, kind of like using cornstarch would be, but it's real easy, just butter and flour. So we're going to be doing that first in our little pan, and then we're going to be basically just making our bisque, which is like a chowder, like a soup, thick soup, and it's real easy to do. The ingredients we're going to need, I'll go through these real quick. Obviously the flour and butter for the roux. Corn, I suggest that you use a very sweet corn. If you live up north and you're lucky enough to get a really nice sweet corn, like around Michigan, Indiana, etc., you can use that. Just cut it off the corn cob, and you want it raw. For those of us that can't get the really good corn, you can get this stuff at virtually any grocery store. You want the super sweet or extra sweet, whatever it says, you know, make sure it's really sweet. Just get these steam fresh bags. You know, store brands are fine too. We're not going to microwave them, so it's okay to just buy them frozen, and you know, we're going to be cooking them in the dish. Get a bag of crawfish and shrimp boil. Now this is to be added if you watched my crawfish boil video. This is what you just add into the water while you're boiling everything. Well, we're going to be using this as our Cajun seasoning. This brand is Louisiana Fish Fry Products. You can get this just about anywhere down south at least, but you might have to go to a few different stores. You can also find it in liquid form, which is absolutely fine to use too. The only thing you don't want to use is the boil-in bag. Those are the three types of crawfish boil. This, where you just pour in the powder, real simple. The liquid, where you just pour it in, again, really simple. And then they have boil-in bags, which are like huge tea bags, full of this stuff, but not chopped up real fine. And you can't use the boil-in bags to actually cook with. You can cook with the liquid or the powder. Celery, we're just going to be mincing a very little amount of it. Get the smallest bag you can. You know, it's kind of a waste of money. It's only a couple bucks for the bag, but again, I need like half a stalk. You know, it's a little ridiculous. But anyway, we're going to be mincing some onion. You want to use a fairly neutral onion, not a really pungent, sweet, red onion or anything like that. Just yellow or white is fine. And I bought this again. It's just easier to give me a head start on chopping it up. This is chopped or diced, and we're going to be taking a knife to it and getting it a lot finer than this. This garlic you can see here, this is minced. This is what we're going to get the onions and the celery down to. When you're making a soup or roux or anything like that, not a roux, bisque, you want things really small because you want them to dissolve, and you don't want to be eating chunks of veggies. You want to be eating the crab. And we want some chopped green onions. Again, you can do these yourself, but this is absolutely perfect. And these are more for garnish than flavor. They're going to go in at the end. We're going to need just a little bit of olive oil just to cook the veggies down in. And the crab. You've got two choices with the crab. You have claw meat and you have what's called lump, which is the more juicy, tender, sweet stuff that comes out of the bodies and some of the arms and feet. The lump is basically going to cost you about 25% more than the claw. They both have their own flavors and textures. I love them both, so I'm putting both in here along with the shrimp. The claw meat can be a little less sweet and a little chunkier. You can see some of the claw-shaped pieces, where the lump is just going to be, you know, lots of strings and, you know, better for soups, but and I love them both. Crab is one of my most favorite meats. So we got that. And again, these weren't too bad. This was like $7, and this is, I believe, 8 ounces, so half a pound. And this is a 1 pound can of lump, and this was only $15, buying it in the big can. If I was to buy it in the small ones, and they have 6 ounce little packages too, and the lump was like $8 for a 6 ounce package. So obviously I saved like 30% just getting a pound can. And again, you know, if you want to save your money, just get shrimp. You know, put a couple pounds of shrimp in here. And of course, again, if you're only cooking for 2, you can halve everything I'm doing and save some money that way too. Last but not least is flavor boost or seafood or fish stock. These are found just about anywhere. They're basically concentrated broth, which is kind of like concentrated watered down stock. So I mean, they're about equal. I'm going to be using, there are 4 packets in here. I'm going to use them all. Alternatively, you can use a cup of seafood or fish stock, or ideally crab stock, but that's like even more impossible to find. I went around to 3 different stores. Nobody had either one of them, so you know, this is okay. Doesn't make a huge difference between the 2, but if you have the choice, just get the stock and use it that way. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and make up our roux. Really easy. We're going to be melting some butter, set this aside, and whisking in some flour. There's basically 2 kinds of roux. There's blonde or light, and there's dark or brown. Basically, the difference between the 2 is how long you cook it. Darker it's going to get the longer you cook it, and it just changes the flavor a little bit. The lighter the blonde roux, you want to cook it just enough so you get that uncooked flour taste out and it becomes neutral. And then when it starts going past golden brown into dark, then it brings out more of a buttery, burnt flavor, which is okay if that's what you want, but we're going for a neutral blonde here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and clear some of this stuff out and make our roux. Alright, now to start our roux, it takes equal parts, or at least most do, flour and butter. For this one, let's go ahead and use this. We're going to use 3 tablespoons of butter, so just under half a stick. You want to melt it gently. You do not want this scorching or boiling the butter or anything like that. So put your heat on about a medium. After we get the butter all actually liquefied, we're going to be whisking in slowly our flour. And once it's all incorporated, then we can start the actual cook time. Now, technically, I misspoke earlier. There's 3 recognized types of roux. There's a white roux, and that's basically the point where you've just incorporated the flour in and it hasn't started to cook yet. I don't really have much of a use for that, so I really only use the blonde and the browns. Now, you can go really crazy with the browns, and it does, the cook time for these, it varies depending on how much roux you're making. If you're doing a huge pot of something, you know, you might be using half a cup of butter and half a cup of flour or more, and you're going to be sitting here whisking for 15 or 20 minutes if you want a really nice brown cooked roux. We're not using much for this because we're not doing that big of a batch. So there we go. We got the butter melted. It's heating up. Again, relatively low heat. And we're going to put in a tablespoon at a time of flour, just regular all-purpose flour, not cake flour or anything like that. You just want to whisk it in gently, a little bit at a time. You don't want big clumps forming, that's all. And again, the point of this is to basically cook the flour. That's what we're making. Nothing really hard about this at all. Just get out the lumps one more. A little bit of a boil there, turn the heat down. Alright. Get this all whisked together. You can see the color turning already. What we're looking for a good blonde is a golden brown. Not blonde like bleach blonde hair, but blonde like the Skylake. You know, just a little bit of color going to it. When you get darker than that, you get into like a brown sugar, a dark brown sugar, that's considered a brown roux. This does take constant attention. Keep stirring at all times. You don't want to see any kind of smoke. And what you'll find is, after a few minutes, we're going to go for about 3 more minutes. What you'll find is it thickens up. And when you do this, it won't start to run together right away. Kind of look like a pudding. It's almost like cooking pudding. But what this is doing is getting rid of all that grainy processed flavor that's in raw flour, which you don't want. If you've ever baked a cake or had one that's been baked with flour sprinkled on the bottom, like to make it not stick to something, and you tasted that flour, you know what I'm talking about. I think it's not bad, but it's certainly nothing you'd want in a crab bisque. Starting to thicken up a little bit here. Still pretty runny. Turn my heat up just a little bit. I've got it on 4 out of 8. So good solid medium now. I'm just using a little burner here. Not going crazy. Anyway, I'll finish this out, get the roux done, and we'll set this aside and start the veggies. Alright, been at this about 4 minutes. You can see that the color pretty much matched the garlic there. It's like a light butterscotch. That's what we want. So we are done with that. That is done cooking. Just set it aside. Now we're going to go back to our big pan. If you don't have one like this, just use any large pan. You could even use a big pot. We're just going to be using it for 2 purposes. I'm going to put the heat on high. I'm going to heat this whole thing up, turn up the big burner. First thing we're going to do is saute our raw vegetables. We have our corn. And again, we're going to be putting those in as is. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do the corn after I get some liquid going. So I want those to kind of boil and cook. What I've done is already minced up. I've got 1 celery stalk and about a cup worth of the onions. I've chopped the onions up even finer. If you have a food processor or one of those handheld tools that you want to mince this up with, that's perfectly fine too. Save yourself some time there. Let me set this aside. Absolutely no problem with doing that. What we want to do is get the pan really hot. We're going to put in just a couple tablespoons of olive oil just to saute our stuff in. Done with the flour. Put him away. Man, I need a bigger kitchen. Alright, let's get a little oil going. Just a couple tablespoons. Oh, and I forgot to mention a couple ingredients now that I think about liquids. I forgot the liquids. Let's see here. There we go. Glad I have enough. Our fine liquids for the day are heavy cream and milk. Alright. Really easy there. That is the base to the soup. Like I said, it's pretty close to a chowder. Just got some more flavor. Alright, oil's nice and hot. Now we're going to go ahead and put in our celery and onions. Get those sauteing. Add really nice texture and flavor. Toss in our garlic. I'll let this go about a minute. Get everything nice and sauteed real quick. Yeah, you know what? I do want to do the corn at this point because it is frozen. I think it's best. Once you gotta cut this open. There it is. Might as well do all the veggies at the same time. Now, if you're doing fresh corn, a minute is going to be fine for this. If you're doing frozen like me, give it maybe 3 or 4, because that corn has to heat up. It's going to suck the heat out of the pan. Excuse me, out of the pan and the oil. Now, if you don't love corn as much as I do, you can cut it in half. That's alright. But I like my bisque and my soups really thick. If you like yours thinner and you like more liquid, obviously do it to taste. It really doesn't affect the flavor as much as the texture and what you get out of it. But I love everything I'm putting in here, so this is my Guy Stuff channel, and I'm showing you my favorites. You are free to do whatever you like. Alright, I'm going to let this go, and after a few minutes, after it's really started to heat up, get a proper saute, we will move on to the next step. Alright, our veggies have sauteed. Onions are just starting to go transparent. Nice and hot corn. Celery's getting nice and tender. So that's ready to go. Just wanted to give that a head start. Now what we want to do, if again you have fish stock, use a couple cups of that. I have a cup of hot water here and I put 4 packets of the Flavor Boost in. We're going to put this in, and another cup of just water. We're also going to put in the packet of crab boil seasoning. Or a bottle of liquid if you have that. This gives us that beautiful Cajun flavor. Again, without the kick. If you want the spicy kick, go ahead and start adding cayenne, Tabasco sauce, whatever you like. But we're just doing this one for flavor. Gonna mix that in there. Smells good. Smells like crawfish. Okay, now we're going to salt and pepper to taste. Don't go crazy here because you want it to be fairly neutral coming out. You want every person to be able to salt and pepper their own bowl to taste, but we do need some. I'm going to put in maybe 3 tablespoons of pepper and maybe 2 at the most of salt. That should be good enough. This can's almost out. Good timing. Okay. Whisk all that together. It's okay to have your heat on high at this point. We're going to be boiling. want to get all that mix really dissolved in there at this point. No clumps. Okay. Wash my hands. All right, got a good boil going here. Now we're going to whisk in our milk and our cream. Going to be doing an equal parts measure here, about 4 cups of each. Do our milk first. It's important to whisk when you do this, so you don't want the milk to scorch. Start off a little at a time as it starts to come up to temp. If you're used to cooking custards, you know what I'm talking about. All right. Now we can go a little faster. Milk, cream, you don't really want to dawdle when you do this because, again, you don't want it burning. Don't let it set too long. Whoa! Going over the sides. Alright, 3 more of the cream. That does not want to stay. Alright, good to go there. Enough left over for a couple cups of coffee. Gently stir this. Now, we want this to come up to a boil. I'm going to turn the heat down to medium-high, because man, this milk and cream can scorch real fast. Just slowly stir it, make sure nothing's burning on the bottom. Still got a lot of mix and salt in there that's not going to be fully dissolved yet till this heats up. And this will take a few minutes, so I'll be back. Alright, we're finally at a boil here. This process takes time. Do not stop stirring it, scraping the bottom. Do not rush it. Once you get it to a boil, come all the way down to the lowest setting. We are going to simmer this for another 7 minutes. Keep scraping it, keep stirring it, whisking. Do not let the cream and milk burn. Do not let the spices and the veggies burn. If you burn this, you ruin it. That is a bad thing. So we're going to let this come down. It's going to stop boiling in a minute. And in 7 minutes, we will be ready for the next step. So it's been simmering here 7 minutes. It's getting nice and incorporated. Just stirring it and whisking it like this, I can feel that there's no more chunks or bits of the seasoning or anything getting stuck to the bottom, so it's all nice and dissolved. Now it's quite thin, obviously, and this is where our roux comes in. I want to kick it up to low, and we're going to be slowly whisking in the roux, which you can see is quite thick, about a tablespoon at a time. Stir it around here, butter separated out a bit. Just get it runny. We're just gonna whisk it in a little bit at a time until you see the mixture really starting to thicken things up. It'll happen pretty quickly. This will just take a few minutes. How long this takes depends on how much you're making. So I'm just going to keep stirring it or keep whisking it here until we see it starting to thicken up. Alright, we can see that it is starting to thicken up. You can see the waves going through are a little slower. You can feel it pulls the whisk a little bit more. That'll tighten up even more as it cooks through this last part, because we are ready to add the good stuff. Keeping the heat on low, medium low, somewhere in there. We're done with the whisk. We don't want to pulverize any of the good stuff we're going to put in. Now, I'm starting with the shrimp. They're not completely frozen. I had them in the fridge overnight, so they got a little bit of a head start, but we still want to put them in first because they're cold. These are going to drag the temp down. It's important to, whatever shrimp you're making in a soup or anything like this, go ahead and get the ones that are already processed, you know, peeled, detailed, deveined, clean. You can just drop them right in. Doesn't really save you much money getting them raw, having to prep each one, saute them, clean them. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I got that bag, you know, 100 or so shrimp, $5. Can't complain about that. I just want to bring these up to temp a little bit before I put the crab in. Alright. Bringing my heat down to low here. And ready for the crab. Now, like I said, I love both lump and claw. These are generally ready to go. If you get one with a pack that's in water or anything, drain the water out, kind of like tuna. But these happen to be just meat. And they're already good to go. Basically, we're just heating them up. They're already pasteurized. Just break them up, gently put them in so you don't splash around. Go ahead and taste for yourself the difference if you do it like this, so you can see the difference between the crab claw and the crab body meat. Ooh, it's hot. It's going on my foot. Just breaking this up here. It's in one huge chunk. I don't feel like a big kerplunk going all over the stove. You do need to work a little quickly because you don't want this burning, obviously. Alright, there we go. Everything in here. Rinse off my hand. And stir. Just mix that in. From this point on, all we're concerned about is that nothing is going to stick to the bottom. Alright, got those incorporated. Now I'm going to put in the last thing, about half this package, half a cup worth or so of green onions. And that's to taste. Green onions, if you're not familiar with them, oops, there's a couple big bits in here I don't want. You want them finely chopped. Green onions are a sweet, mild onion. Really good if you roll them up in pieces of ham, like lunch meat, that you've spread in with cream cheese. And then put a length of green onion through, roll it up, and then cut it like sushi. Oh man, those are the bomb for little appetizers. Alright, that is going. Okay, I'm going to set the timer for another 7 minutes here. Just stir it every minute or so. Just make sure nothing's hitting the bottom. Shouldn't be anything if your heat's low enough. It's just going to sit here, simmer, and come together. Get all those Cajun flavors into the meat. Let everything come up to temp. And we'll be ready to go. And while this is cooking, I'm going to pair it with a fine Ashton VSG Churchill. No, just kidding. A lot of people have asked me, you know, what are your suggestions for cigar pairing with what you're cooking? I actually don't pair cigars. I prefer the flavors of the cigars alone, whether it's drink or food. I've tried it. I've had buddies that are, you know, whiskey connoisseurs and scotch connoisseurs, and they've tried to get me to pair cigars with stuff, but every time I try it, it, by design and nature, alters the flavor of both the cigar and the drink, and I just prefer the straight flavors. When I have a beautiful cigar, those are the flavors I want. So I'm really not into pairing. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just my personal choice. When I have a cigar, it's after my meal, not with it. Same with the drink. Now, I'm not saying I don't have a cigar sometimes if I go to the bar, but that's not to enjoy the pairing, that's just to be out with some buddies. Alright, the final simmer is done and we are ready to plate. Kick the heat off. Smells good. Got the crab in there, you can see the corn, green onions. Really nice, fairly thick roux sauce. Nice bisque. Alright. Now this is another recipe. Someone mentioned on my shrimp Alfredo video that, man, I made it and it was great, but it was even better the next day. That is true. And this is another recipe where it is better the next day. It's awesome right out of the bowl, but you stick this in a Tupperware overnight, reheat it, and it's even better. Here we go. Beautiful. Alright, thanks for watching, guys stuff, and we'll see you next time.